Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party, the only podcast that take you behind through the back catalogue of A24 films, explore their TV output, new releases, and speak to the cast and crew behind these great movies. Today's show feels like it's been over a year in the making, but we're excited to finally sit down and discuss Saint Maud as it gets its long-awaited US release this week. I'm your co-host Dallas King, and with me as always is Lee Hutchison. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a long time since we've done a movie, actually.
Exactly, yeah. We'll have to, might be a wee bit rusty, but we'll get back into the swing of things. And we're delighted to be joined by a special guest. Our saviour has come. It's our very own Scream Queen, Kim Morrison. Good to have you back on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cool. So now, before we get onto the film, let's catch up with just a couple of bits of A24 news. In the last couple of weeks, we've had some teasing of a couple of new projects. First one up is Ex Machina director Alex Garland is going to return to A24 to direct a film called Men, about a woman going on a solo vacation following the death of her husband, and it's potentially going to star Jessie Buckley. And Darren Aronofsky will be joining the A24 family with a film called The Whale, about a reclusive English teacher who weighs 600 pounds, suffering from severe obesity, who attempts to reconnect with his teenage daughter for one last chance at redemption. And this film is apparently going to star Brendan Fraser, and this could be his redemption, I guess, into or an avenue back into Hollywood for him, into the limelight, potentially a Quentin Tarantino-style return. What do you guys make of these new announcements? Lee, let's come to you first.
Yeah, Jessie Buckley's become one of those actors that I want to immediately watch everything that they're choosing to star in at the moment. It's crazy to think, I can't remember the name of that reality TV show she was on where she was like a runner-up or something like that. Was it like Fame Academy or something? So yeah.
It was the one with the Oliver Twist. Was it not? She was going to be a Nancy or something. Not Nancy. Nancy.
I do anything.
I do anything. That's it. Yeah.
That could not be further away from what's it called, Fame Academy. So yeah, total mistake there from me.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize that she was from that until I think after Beast or something, and it was sort of googling her, and I was like, oh, right, okay, because yeah, she didn't strike like me as that type of person to begin with at all. So yeah, but yeah, no, this should be a good one. Yeah.
I think the one thing I've noticed a bit with the kind of talk about The Whale is I'm very excited about a new Darren Aronofsky film. I really am glad to see Brendan Fraser coming back. I know he's had quite public kind of talks about sort of the demons he's faced with his sort of abuse sort of in Hollywood. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him return. But I think there's been some, criticism online that the film could potentially be considered fat shaming, and there's a lot of kind of ill-ease about the film, so it's going to be interesting to sort of see the reactions to this film as we get closer to the time.
Yeah, Kim, have you heard anything about either of these films? Does a synopsis pique your interest at all?
I haven't heard of them, but no, yeah, they sound good, and the same as Lee. I'm interested in anything that Jessie Buckley's in. I think her stuff is really cool, and it's always really interesting. I just watched Beast actually not that long ago and thought she's just so amazing and different like every film she's in, so I'm always like interested to see what she's doing next. So yeah, I think they sound cool.
Yep. I remember seeing Beast just before the famous Cineworld campaign came out, with Jonathan, where he became the tasty debrief guy. Did the Cineworld adverts sort of put a tarnish on that film for you at all?
No, I'd totally forgotten about that. Actually, there was a long enough gap between me watching it to completely forgotten.
I guess the cinemas have been closed long enough to wipe that from your mind.
Yeah, that's true as well. That's why I'm watching so much stuff that I've taped on my Virgin box from like the last 2 years. I'm filling in that knowledge instead.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to a new Darren Aronofsky film, but I'm just wondering if it's going to end up in the same way where basically it's about a person who struggles to achieve their one goal and then sort of potentially die trying, and then it fade to white, as a similar way to Black Swan and The Wrestler. And apologies if I spoiled either of those films for anyone.
I'm still stressed out my nut thinking about Mother and sort of that sink not being reinforced. I don't know if you've seen Mother, Kim. I'd love to hear your take on that one.
I haven't yet. Again, it's one that I have taped, but I keep working up the courage to actually watch it. Like, I just watched Bone Tomahawk a couple of weeks ago after about 6 months of like prepping myself for that. So maybe I'm ready for Mother now.
Bone Tomahawk, yes. There's the thing where people talk about a film and you think, can't be as bad as they're making it, and it's like, oh no, it is, and possibly even worse. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil that moment for anyone if anyone hasn't seen Bone Tomahawk, but it's an excellent film.
It's a brilliant film. It was amazing. I loved it, but wow, just brace yourself.
So from a couple of other very disturbing horrors onto a new one for us. Saint Maud follows a pious nurse with a mysterious background who becomes obsessed with saving the soul of her dying patient. Written and directed by Rose Glass in her debut feature, stars Morfydd Clark and Jennifer Ely. It's out now on a limited release in the US on 29th of January and on VOD 12th of February. And for those in the UK, it's out on DVD and Blu-ray on the 1st of February. So, Kim, let's come to you first. When did you first manage to see Saint Maud, and what were your initial reactions, given the fact that Lee and myself had probably been banging on about it for about a year?
Yeah, I had been trying to see Saint Maud since Glasgow Film Fest. I had heard about it, that it was going to be on, and I was going on the opening night last year to see Synchronic and Death of a Vlogger, but I couldn't stay for the whole weekend. And then I was like, it's fine because it's coming out in May. May's not too long to wait. And then, of course, the whole world broke and didn't get to see it in May. So I actually saw it in October. My letterbox says October 9th. And I think that was like a weird gap in between where we were just about to go back into some kind of lockdown. I think our area was going back into a tier where the cinemas were going to shut. So it was a very like rushed, like, oh my god, I need to go and see this on a Friday night at some mad time to actually get to see it. But I was very glad that I did. I think there's some films that are just like completely enhanced by seeing them in the cinema, and I feel like Saint Maud was definitely one of those. Just the whole like sense of like creep and unease the whole way through, and there's a couple of really good like scares that I feel like just hit so much better in the cinema. It's definitely one of those films that I came out of and you were just a bit like, ooh. It was a bit like when I came out of Midsummer. I was a bit like, wow, okay. Like, I'm not really sure. It takes a while to kind of digest it. Like, I knew that I liked it, I'd like enjoyed it, but it's a weird one to like sort of digest it properly. It's just, I think it's so different from a lot of the other like more traditional kind of obvious horror that I maybe watch, like a lot of the slashers and things. It is one that totally makes you think about it, and I was definitely giggling a lot of like kind of fan theories and stuff when I came out for particular scenes, just trying to get like loads of people's different opinions on like what they thought had happened in different bits. So it was an interesting one. But yeah, I left the cinema a bit like, I'm dying to watch it again actually, just to like kind of absorb it a second time now that I know how everything's gonna play out.
Absolutely. And this is the place for opinions and theories and stuff, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But Lee, when did you first see it, and what were your initial reactions?
So I've looked at my letterbox, and I actually saw almost a year to the day earlier on October the 2nd, 2019. So it's crazy to think this is the week it finally comes stateside. I remembered sort of like it was on my list to see it at London Film Festival in 2019. I think there had been a nice bit of buzz that came out of Toronto, and then it was announced that A24 were going to pick it up. So like I was like, right, I'm 100% going to see this film. I remember going to see it, and much like Kim, I was blown away. I was in shock by the end of it, and it was like, wow, this is a film that's going to have everyone talking about. And I this is where I need you to correct me, because like this is how long it's been. I remember, I think I came out of the film and I messaged you. You hadn't arrived in London yet, and I was like, Dallas, you need to get a public ticket to go see Saint Maud. It's the real deal. I don't know if that really happened or that was another film, but I'm pretty sure that's in my memory of how I spoke about Saint Maud. I was like, I cannot talk about this film to Dallas until he has seen it, because like we are going to freak out about this movie. And it's one that's really stayed with me. I mean, I ended up getting the chance to see it, like Kim, in the cinema just before lockdown. So October 6th, 2020, and when I got the chance to see it again, they did like, and this kind of sums up for me how crazy the past few months were. That was the last time I'd been outside of Edinburgh, was to go see St. Maud in Glasgow. They were doing a preview screening at the Everyman Cinema like a few days early, and it's like, you know what? Things have been really boring lately. I am going to go to Glasgow, go to the Everyman Cinema for the first time, watch St. Maud, go have a Pisano pizza, just get a different change of scenery for the first time. I didn't realise that would be the last time I would leave Edinburgh for now at this point, going on sort of 3 months. It's been absolutely crazy. So yeah, it's been a film I've been really looking forward to talking about with the two of you for a long time now.
Yeah, you are correct. You did text me after that screening saying that I have to see it, and there was one particular moment that freaked you out. It turns out, I think, that I was really freaked out by one moment, but I think it turns out that we were actually talking about different moments, which we'll come on to. But, I mean, I was wanting to see this one as soon as A24 had picked it up for obvious reasons. But it took me a while to see it in London. I think I missed the first screening, and then I was sort of struggling. I was running around making sure I could get to a second one, and it was thankfully a packed crowd, and it played really well. And I think there was a Q&A with Rose Glass afterwards, and I basically asked her who I bill for a new set of trousers after one particular jump scare, because it's fair to say it's probably the best jump scare for me since Lawn Work in Sinister, which was the best jump scare since Night Vision in Descent. So yeah, they're my top three of the last decade, I think. Not decade. Century, actually. God, it's not even a decade anymore, it's a century. Jeez, that's how long these things go. But I was blown away with it. It was 5 stars when I first saw it, 5 stars when I saw it again, and if I see it for a third time, I'm sure it would be again. So what did everyone make of Morfydd Clark's lead performance in this film? Because I think when she filmed it, she was basically kind of an unknown actress, but she's kind of popped up in a lot of things since then, including sort of David Copperfield, the BBC adaptation of Dracula, which some people liked, some people hated, depending on which episode you watched, I think. But Lee, let's come to you first. What did you make of her performance?
I had a bit of whiplash with this one because my first introduction to her was only like 2 days earlier in the personal history of David Copperfield. So I think she plays like 2 characters in it. I think she plays Dora, and I think she plays Clara Copperfield, the character's mom. So yeah, I had my first introduction to her through that. And then I got to interview her on the red carpet, sort of like just a kind of couple, like on that evening. So I remember just sort of seeing her as this quite small, kind of brittle young woman, and it was just like, oh, this is going to be the character that's in St. Maud. Interesting to kind of have a wee chat with her. You kind of got the impression it was going to be her sort of festival. There's always a couple of actors that seem to appear in a couple of things, so that was my total first introduction to her. And then going into St. Maud, where she's like the lead character, I just thought she was truly incredible. I mean, as you say, she seems to be going from strength to strength. She's going to be an elf in Lord of the Rings, which I can 100% see. And I just thought, like, as this sort of person that goes through quite the journey, she's this religious figure that can also have like wild, crazy sex on the side, that can put herself through crazy things with her body. I was really sort of impressed by the journey she goes on in only sort of like 85 minutes. I thought she was incredible, and one of these actors we think, I could, much like Jessie Buckley, who is this person, where have they been, and I cannot wait to see whatever they do next, and I'll be there kind of opening weekend.
Excellent. Kim, what did you make of her performance?
I mean, I thought she was amazing. Like, I would have said I hadn't seen her in anything until you just said Dracula, and then I was like, oh, I've watched that. And I just looked it up, and she's in like Crawl, and she was in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I've seen all of those. I thought she was absolutely brilliant. Like, I think a role like that depends on a lot of scenes where it's just like her by herself being a bit bananas. Like, this was really, you have to have like an amazing like actor playing that role, and I think she was just fantastic. She really had this great sort of line of being like, you definitely sympathized with her because she was the main character, but you were also like curling your toes and like covering your face at some of the stuff she was doing. You're like, oh my god, just stop making like really cringy decisions, just stop doing stuff like that. And I think you really related as well. I mean, obviously it's a quite extreme version of it that she was doing, but the whole thing of like she's obviously trying to forget things that happened in her past and like better herself, but like things keep coming back that either sort of trigger her memories, or she like bumps into people she used to know in her more like hedonistic days, and she sort of has a bit of a relapse and stuff. She's just desperately trying to be this like perfect version of a person that she wants to be, but stuff's always like sort of holding her back, even if it's like herself. And I think she played that struggle really well. Like you definitely got it, even though she's a very like quiet, reserved character, you could sort of see all that going on under the surface. So yeah, I thought she was brilliant. She just really like mesmerizing every time she was on the screen. She was just amazing to watch.
Absolutely, I think it's a star-making performance by her, and like both of you say, just really excited to see what she does next, and basically, to go from Saint Maud into basically stepping into the shoes of Cate Blanchett in the Lord of the Rings series as Galadriel. It's like that's a good career move, I think. So, does anyone sort of speculate as to what happened in the past, or is it sort of the kind of thing it's better left not explicitly mentioned and said? It's better to leave your mind to go off to weird and crazy sort of things. Kim, what do you think happened? Do you think?
Yeah, because there's like, it's like at the beginning they sort of, there's a scene where she's doing CPR on a patient and the patient dies anyway, and I think at the beginning that's sort of how that's all they kind of go into it, really. But then later on there's a scene where she's having sex with a guy and she's on top of him, like leaning on his chest, and it sort of flashes as if she's like giving CPR to the person, but like burst right through their chest. And I remember coming out of the cinema and going to my boyfriend, I was like, was that real? Like, is that really what she did? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, it's not just like an exaggerated memory of. So I think there's a lot of that when I came out, and I was like, was that real, or was that just her mind doing like an exaggerated version of it? But I feel like the main crux of it was that she accidentally killed someone while trying to resuscitate them, and that sort of sent her off the deep end and took her out of like more, because she was working at a hospital and now she does like end of life care instead. She'd sort of moved into like a one-on-one basis, but I'm still not sure how real that sex flashback was, because it looked like the scene in The Thing where the guy's like chest opens up and eats that guy's arms. Like it was very graphic, and I was like, she's tiny, no way could she have like burst through someone's chest with her arms. But it was it was a beautiful scene, whether it was real or not. But yeah, unless
she was possessed and had the strength of a demon. But
well, yeah, exactly. Like, but yeah, something bad happened, and the graphicness of it was very, very cool. But because it's from her point of view and it's like her flashback, you can't quite trust it. She's a bit of a unreliable narrator.
Yeah, and I mean, it's clear that she left her previous job under a cloud and potentially may not even technically be having the right kind of license to be doing what she's doing, and has maybe forged some documents, but someone who may potentially sort of know the truth and is into that is the character of Joy. And Lee, you were lucky enough to speak to the actress Lily Knight about her role in Saint Maud. So do you want to tee up what you two talked about?
Yeah, we really dived into sort of the making of Saint Maud, and what we're going to hear in this sort of little next clip is sort of that Lily Knight actually went for the role of Maud, unfortunately missed out, but got the role of Joy. So she's going to take us a little bit behind the scenes on sort of the casting process for Saint Maud, and what it was like working with Rose Glass. So here is Lily Knight. When did you sort of first hear about Saint Maud? When did it come to your attention?
I think it was the beginning of 2018, like January, February time, like right in the beginning of the year. And I read the script and I was like, whoa, this is good. Because actors spend their whole time reading scripts and like, you hope that you end up developing a taste and like the ability to see whether something like is really good or has legs and anyway, I read that straight away. It was like, oh my god, I want to be involved in this. And I actually auditioned for Maud, Carol and Joy. And initially I auditioned for Maud And I was like, oh, and I walked into the audition room and I've never felt like, I can't express to you, I honestly never felt like I've met Rose more. Like, I think I must have been embarrassingly over friendly, but and I left and I was like, I haven't ever met her, oh God. But she was amazing, and there was so much time given in the audition, and you didn't feel like you're being rushed out the room, and it was so creative. And I mean, all the casting, Kamal was brilliant as well, and like, but yeah, and then I found out that I didn't get Maud, but they wanted to see me for Joy, and then they were like, actually Carol, and then it was Joy again, and then so and I felt like Rose sort of wanted me somewhere and didn't quite know where, but I was so pleased to just keep on coming back. I was like, take me.
with the three, obviously, that you went for, they're such hugely different kind of characters.
Yeah, totally.
Was it one of those ones that you have to go, like, how do you as an actor prepare for something like that? That you've got someone like Maud, very kind of quiet, relaxed. Then you've got someone like Joy, that very kind of salt of the earth, very bubbly. And then Carol's got like an edge to her.
Yeah, totally.
I can imagine it's difficult preparing for one role. Is that sort of a thing you turn up on a day and it's like, right, I'm going to do this one for 5 minutes, then I go into the next one, into the next one. How does that sort of audition process work?
Well, I don't know about people's preparation, but my preparation is basically I read the script all over again, thinking about the character that I'm going up for, and with my focus like specifically on them and the way they're spoken about, interacted with, the way they're responding, la 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 la. I never auditioned for the same characters on the same day, which was, you know, lucky. So at each audition I could like focus quite clearly on like Maud, and then focus clearly on Carol, and focus, but like Joy definitely sat, I mean, I couldn't decide whether maybe it's because I was the most relaxed at that point in the room, but like Joy definitely sat with me the like the easiest, I suppose. But I think, I mean, like what's so great about Rose's writing and also her directing is that her characters are clear. Like you know, sometimes you read it like a script and you're just like, I'm not entirely sure like who this is, or what they're supposed to sound like, or how they're supposed to move, or you know, anything. And with Rose, I felt like the script was really clear. So I mean, I think Morpeth is absolutely astonishing, but I don't think necessarily my offering was actually that different to hers. It's because of Rose's writing offers so much and is so, it's just brilliant. It's brilliant. So yeah, I mean, I suppose you just have to go in there thinking a different headspace each time and like enjoy playing characters, not just, you know, a iota away from yourself.
The one thing you touched on earlier on, and I could not agree with you more. I'd have maybe disagreed after my first watch, but for the second one, it nailed it for me. I saw the film 1 year ago, pretty much to the day, at the London Film Festival, and I found it a very stressful, very anxious experience. And then I watched it last Tuesday. I got the chance to see a preview of it, and it was like, this film is quite funny. And that second scene where you return sort of is like, it's one of the things I was just talking about. It would just, when you break it down, it is like classic kind of comedy. Like you turn up and sort of like Maud is sort of walking around in sort of like a catatonic state in her vest and her pants, and you're having this like one-sided conversation. You're not blinking to the fact that she is basically just ignoring you. You're just having a good time. And as you say, you've got the cigarette lit and there's like lighter fluid just like moments away. Like,
right there, yeah.
The first time I'm sitting there thinking, my God, this poor Joe's going to like burn into flames and so on. And this one,
Yeah.
God, this is hysterical to watch. What was that kind of scene like? Did you always sort of envision it as kind of it mixes kind of that stress, that anxiety. There's also that humor that, you know, we're seeing, as you say, Joy is such a caring kind of character. There's not many people that reach out to kind of Katie and Maud in that caring way. So many people kind of sneer at her or indulge her a little bit. What was that whole kind of scene like to bring to life, and how long did it take to kind of shoot that one?
Well, we shot it in a day, which was amazing, or maybe slightly less than a day, but it was amazing because there was lots of time given to it, which was great. But I think the on the day, I remember some of the crew being like, "You're being really funny," and I was like, "Oh God, I hope not too funny." But I think what was really, I mean, I don't know if I've done this right or not, but I think it's really important not to catch the person you're acting opposite's energy. And I didn't want to catch Maud's energy, because Joy isn't the same, like, you know, rhythm as her at all. And like, and I think that's where, like, you know, the dark comedy sits really well, when people are like knocking against each other in a sort of awkward way. I think obviously the comedy goes away a little bit when she's like talking about loneliness or whatever. But then it's, I don't know, I thought it was just really funny when she, like, in the script, like, saying, like, Rose, when she was directing that bit where she's like, "Oh, you know, like all this," or whatever it is. Like, I thought that was really amusing. And Rose was like talking to me about it. And I was like, "Oh, that's quite funny." She was like, "Yeah, she's unaware." Like, and also she thinks, "Bloody hell, like, that's a shrine." And can't really give much oxygen to things, because doesn't actually want to chat about her religion, but she, you know, has time to find out she's all right. But it did feel amusing when we were doing it. And like, and then I actually left, and I had some terrible panic for about a week that I just like hit it at a really at the wrong point. And I was like, I think I just should have been way more mellow. And I was like speaking to my boyfriend about it, just being like, fingers crossed I didn't cock that up.
Excellent. Thanks to Lily for joining us on the A24 project, and Lee for basically the best British horror movie of the year, one of the best horror movies of the year. Actually, why am I saying the year? Of a year? What year is it in particular? We don't know. Time stands still at the moment. But what did you make of Scarborough as a setting for this horror film?
Yeah, I found it really quite interesting. I think if I'm going to be critical of it, is that sort of, it seems to be kind of, it uses the fairground sort of area a little too much. It feels like we do go up and down it, and it kind of loses a little bit of its impact. But I find it quite interesting, sort of that sort of English kind of town side and so on. I think it looks really good on especially the big screen, and it seems like that real mix of like these tacky kind of fairgrounds, you know, towns, similar to Portobello. Here you have this lovely stretch of beach, and then you have this kind of like the pugging machines, the bright fluorescent lights here and there, but then in the background you have these huge buildings where sort of like you can imagine people from London, and as we kind of see in this, people from the creative arts, they maybe leave kind of the big city to kind of escape to Scarborough. So yeah, I found it interesting, but I just felt like they could have used a little bit less of the fairground imagery, I think.
Yeah, because a lot of the success of the movie is like down to I think the central location. Actually, two central locations. You've got Maud's sort of flat bedsit sort of thing, and then also this fantastic old house, where I think, if I'm correct, I was listening to a lot of Rose Glass sort of interviews and stuff when I think she was at Glasgow as well, and they're talking about the fact that, you know, they filmed a lot of it in Scarborough, but then the outside of the house is not in Scarborough. I think it's somewhere in sort of Maidenhead or somewhere like that. And then sort of they took a long time trying to find the inside of a house that would sort of give the right sort of atmosphere. And I think it really does. And one of the sort of, it's weird that, you know, this is a film which, you know, some critics have likened to the likes of, I could have just said likened to The Exorcist and sort of Roman Polanski's sort of Repulsion and stuff like that. But two films which really weirdly it reminded me of was, one, What Happened to Baby Jane, for the relationship between the two women. The fact that, sort of, you know, at some point, you know, someone's sort of wheeling someone around in a wheelchair. And then also Taxi Driver as well, certainly in the sort of second half of the film, where Maud is in the bed, so basically sort of talking to herself in the same way that Travis Bickle sort of does, and has this mission of trying to save someone, even though it's not going to end particularly well. What did you guys make of the central relationship between Maud and Jennifer Ely's character, the sort of Norma Desmond-esque sort of dancer who lives alone up in this house? Kim, let's come to you first.
I thought it was it's a difficult one. Like, I thought it was really interesting, but when at the beginning where Maud starts being like a little bit strange, and you're like, oh, that's it. So I was just like, oh God, please, like, don't, like, you're trying to like start your life over, like, don't like weird everyone out already. But then the person that she's nursing for is actually seems kind of into it to start with. She's quite curious about Maud's faith, and she they sort of have a moment like on the couch where Maud sort of gets like overtaken by like the feeling that she's feeling like from God, and Amanda sort of joins in with her as well. So you kind of think that they're getting along quite well, but you can you just know that like something's gonna go wrong at some point, like something's gonna happen in the relationship that's gonna kind of fracture it. And I think it was yeah, I thought Amanda was a little bit mean to her. She could tell she was quite like innocent and quite reliant on her faith and stuff, and I think she sort of takes the mickey out of her and pushes her to, I mean, obviously there's some stuff that Maud does that's a bit out there, but when they fall out at a party and she like slaps her, I don't really blame her for it, because I can see how like wound up she was getting by that point. I think it's a thing of Maud obviously doesn't have a lot of friends, and she sort of feels this bond building with Amanda, and then it's like that wasn't necessarily what she was looking for, but when it gets ripped away, like she feels like double betrayed by it, and it just sort of sends her spiraling. So I thought it was really interesting to watch it kind of play out, but I felt like the minute they sort of started bonding, you could just tell it was going to go wrong. It kind of had to go wrong, and that was a bit unfortunate.
Yep. Lee, what did you make of the Maud Amanda relationship?
Yeah, it's one of those ones, like, if I'm being self-reflective, I could probably see an element of myself in kind of Amanda in a way. Like, I am someone that is, and you know, I do not have a faith and so on. And, you know, I would find Maud quite peculiar to be around, and I would find it a bit hard not to have a little smile on my face as she kind of dives into touching in her faith. Like, she's so sincere and well-meaning, but it's just sort of, I think it's the sort of soft voice and sort of the ethereal nature of her that it's kind of hard not to chuckle. Like the bit where they're doing the prayer, and like, you know, I could imagine sort of thinking back to when I've been at like religious weddings where, you know, there's people kind of praying. I would tend to keep myself up and sort of just reflect on what's being said as opposed to kind of praying. But there's been times where things have been said that are by religious people at those kind of events where I just have a little kind of smirk to myself, or kind of a roll of my eye, where like I've been at places and like things where like, and as we know, love is between a man and a woman, and it's sitting there like rolling the eyes, or, you know, those sorts of things you kind of come up where it's just like, God, this is such nonsense and stuff like that. But, you know, I'll play along. But if someone caught my face, they would probably see me kind of, you know, not mugging them off a little bit, but kind of looking like a bit smug or a bit of a prick potentially, but not meaning to. So I certainly see bits of myself in potentially Amanda and so on. But I think that's, you know, you see it in things like this where people of that kind of faith, it, you know, you can indulge it, you can sort of smile at it, but it can also turn incredibly deadly if it is sort of indulged, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's that sort of moment where it's like, yeah, they do seem to be bonding, and Maud thinks she's found a kindred spirit, and then when sort of Amanda sort of says that, you know, she wasn't feeling anything and she was just doing it essentially for shits and giggles, and was just like, yeah, I was bored in this big house and I saw someone that, you know, I could potentially make fun of just to purely amuse me. You can see why Maud is so hurt and leaves. And I mean, sort of thinking about it just now, it almost feels like the two of them have the arc of what potentially would have been like your standard rom-com sort of thing, where you have a meet cute, they meet together, they're getting on, and then they break up, and then sort of Maud does a mad dash back to the house at the end for them to be together and reunite. But unfortunately, it doesn't go happily ever after. I think it's fair to say. But I mean, I think Jennifer Ehle is great in this, and she's someone who, I always thought she was British for some reason. I think it's probably because the first time I saw her, she was in like the BBC adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. So I always assumed she was British, and then turned out I think she's like actually like Canadian American. And it was then I saw her in, was it The Miseducation of Cameron Post? And when I saw her in that, I think if they ever do a biopic of Meryl Streep, she's got to be a shoo-in for the role, because I think she's fantastic. I think she could nail that role as well. But I think she's great, and I think that the two of them together are fantastic. And yeah, she's a very bitter, twisted person who life has not turned out the way that she wanted, and yeah, she sort of sees all these people come into the house as basically it's her pawns and playthings, and you know, if she was to get a comeuppance, would it be entirely her fault? Who knows? But I mean, one great thing about the film is the look of it, and also how everything, the mood is created. It's got a great atmosphere. And Lee, you were also very lucky enough to speak to one of the people who helped generate some of that atmosphere, and that is composer Adam Janota Bzowski. So, do you want to tee up a bit of your conversation with him?
This is Adam talking about working with Rose on sort of the award-nominated soundtrack for Saint Maud.
You touched on it about sort of how you managed to get your shot at Saint Maud. At what stage do you come in at? Do you come in at there's a script to read? What kind of sound and music can you be inspired by? Or do you kind of come in after shooting's finished and you have something to work to on screen?
So by the time I got involved, this was January 2019, maybe 2018. I'm terrible with dates. They'd already finished filming, and I was sent what was called a treatment. So it was kind of just an overview, a synopsis of the film that Rose had written, just outlining what was going to happen and what it was about. And bundled with all of this was a lot of imagery, kind of inspirational photography from different artists. Very, very macabre and incredibly spooky pictures. So I didn't get a script. I just had this outline that Rose had made. And from that, I made 40 minutes of demo music in order to pitch for the job. You know, kind of like, here's what I think it should sound like. And luckily, when I went for the interview, I went up to their studio in Finsbury where they were editing to meet everyone. And I could hear my score through the walls of the editing suite. So I kind of had an inkling that perhaps maybe I was the person they were looking for, since they were already using my music, but I couldn't be sure. And only later did I start getting reels, you know, cues, scenes of the film to start piecing together.
As you were starting to piece things together, what was that kind of dynamic like between you and sort of the director, Rose Glass? Is she quite clear on what she's looking for from the kind of the score and design, or do you kind of get quite a lot of kind of creative freedom?
Originally, what we did was she gave me the whole film, outlining where the cues were meant to go, and she said, you do what you want, and so we'll see what you come back with. And I did that, and I would say 70% she said, no, that I don't want any of that, which was somewhat disappointing. No one wants to be told you've done it wrong, but you always knew with Rose that she was right. Whatever she said, it was succinct, it was clear, and you knew it was the correct direction. So once we started to find our thrust, as she called it, we very, very quickly honed into the correct direction that she was looking for. Her general criteria was nothing traditional, nothing too trad. So none of this kind of sweeping strings and, you know, lovely bouquets of music. She wanted it to sound very obscure, very strange, very weird, which was such a treat for me to hear, because it's very rare that in my line of work I got to be weirder, stranger, and dig into the sound more, I was so lucky that she wanted that from me.
We often find when I kind of love to watch like documentaries about the making of films, and I always find sound designs and scores quite interesting. And one thing I've always kind of picked up from them is that directors can sometimes get quite attached to temp scores or inspirations. Was that kind of the case with St. Maud before you came in and were able to sort of bring along your score? Was there any sort of temp scores in place already on the film?
Yeah, so there was a whole bunch of cues that had been placed that Rose and the editor Mark Towns had placed onto everything, but the general sense was that Rose didn't really like any of them. They kind of fit the bill in moving the scene forward, but very few of them did what she wanted them to do. The only sticking point where we had a problem with what's called temp love, like where people get obsessed with this cue, was excuse me, was it's in the soundtrack as I Think It Went Well, and it's the scene where it's kind of this montage where in the middle of the film Maud is enjoying her relationship with Amanda, and she's bathing and she's doing the signs of the cross with holy water around the house. And we had this track, I think it was from Hereditary, so Colin Stetson's score. And it had this really lovely, lulling, kind of quite Sunday morning feel to it. And I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it right. And we landed on something, and it went out to all of the festivals. And actually, right up until the final film was sold to A24, did we actually change that cue. So people who watched it at LFF actually will have seen a different film score to the people that will see it commercially now.
That blows my mind. I saw it at LFF and then obviously saw it again last week. And it's been so long, I never realized I sort of potentially saw two different versions of that film. That's amazing.
Yeah, it really, but that's what I loved about Rose. She's like, it's got to be how I want it to be. And it was almost impossible for me to think that people would be making last minute changes that late. But then I remember reading about the guy who directed Cats, and he like changing it right up until the day of cinema release. So, you got to do what you got to do to make your film right.
Fantastic. And as always, you can listen to the full episodes of those interviews on the A24 Project, available here on the Nerd Party. But I think that it's probably safe to say that after that little juncture, shall we put up a big spoiler warning? I mean, I think it's that awkward thing where it's like it's only just out in America, but it's been out for ages in the UK, and it's well past that probably spoiler window in the UK. So I think we can put up a spoiler warning now. So if you have not seen St. Maud yet, go rent it, watch it, and come back. Is everyone back? Okay. So going into the final act of the film, Maud decides that she gets a message from God, who was speaking in a very strange language to her, which I only realised after the film was actually Welsh, and because the actress is Welsh, it makes complete sense. But I thought it was just some strange sort of version of Latin or something. No, just turned out to be Welsh. Shows how ignorant I am. But it turns out Welsh can be a very sinister language if spoken in a voice that sounded very much actually like Black Phillip. If this was going to be like an A24 horror movie crossover or something. So she goes back to the house to confront Amanda to try and save her soul, and things don't go well. Now, there was two big jump scares, a few. It turns out the one that Lee was talking about was more of an icky moment, I think, and it was the moment with the shoes. Is that right, Lee?
Yeah, I'm so glad that I got to watch this film without the trailers. Like, I remember just sort of sitting in that cinema screen and just like getting really stressed and uncomfortable. And like I've said it before when we've kind of all talked about horror movies, that it's not like the supernatural that terrifies me, it's what human beings can do to each other and themselves. And I just remember just watching that, just being like, oh my God. And I think that this is something to be said about watching films in the cinema, because that'll be a tense moment to watch at home. But when you're in the cinema and you're just like, you're feeling the stress of like, oh my God, is she going to do it? Is she like, oh, and then she does it. and the noise on like the speaker system of like her squelching down the promenade is just that was the moment for me that was like, that's the shocker.
Yeah, Kim, what did you make of that body horror moment?
Oh man, yeah, it's one of those things that yeah, you just don't really think that she's gonna do it, and then she does. It's so realistic. I think that is the thing as well. It just looks so real. And again, I think I thought that just her putting the shoe on was going to be like the end of the scene. So yeah, seeing her like squelch about in the shoes, just like, oh my god, it's just absolutely brutal. And I think it sort of gives you like I think in that moment you kind of realize exactly like what kind of character she is if she's willing to do something like that. But yeah, I loved it. It was so realistic. I always think feet and ankle injuries are the ones in horror with films that get me the most. So yeah,
I'm going to throw heels in there as well.
If that's what I would call it. Yeah, heels, anything from like the ankle down is not good territory.
Have you done a top 10 ankle foot injury list for a website yet?
I have, yeah. I've done an ankle one. An ankle, specifically like Achilles tendon injuries, because once you start spotting those, there's a lot of them. And I just watched both Pet Sematary films the other day, actually, and it's in both of them as well. So it's lovely. I'll need to do just a foot related one though. And yeah, that would be fun.
I can't remember which horror film it is now, but I've just got in my mind, I'm just seeing a particularly bad razor slice to the back of someone's Achilles tendon, and I can't remember it. It'll come back to me later on tonight. I'll just randomly shout out the name of a horror film in that. But another one that always gets me is the sort of pencil to the ankle socket in Evil Dead. Yeah, that's a great one.
That's rad.
Yeah. But my particular favorite scare in the film is at the end when the devil finally makes his appearance, and it's a proper jump scare because I wasn't expecting it, and the composer, hats off to him, he did not signpost it in any way. It just sort of comes out of nowhere. Did it get you two as well?
Yeah. I love jump scares, like even like the cheap ones. Like I love getting like whoo, and then like giggling about it afterwards. But yeah, I think you're right. You just didn't sense it coming at all. There wasn't like that like when a cat's about to get thrown into the shot and make a stupid noise. There wasn't any of that. And also I think because by that point you're so convinced that Maud is like, I mean obviously there's questions as to whether any of that was real or whatever, but what I mean is you had it so solid in your head that like Maud is just a bit bananas and nothing she's saying is true, that you didn't even expect, even if it is like just a vision in her head or whatever, you didn't expect this big like demon to just like jump onto the screen. And it was absolutely, I think I probably like shouted a swear word in the cinema, which the last time I remember doing that again was Sinister. So yeah, it was brilliant. I loved it. I'd be interested to watch it again, even knowing that it's coming. I still think it would get me because it's amazing. It just comes out of nowhere and it's really creepy. And I think as well because the rest of the film isn't necessarily like outright scary, it's just that horrible kind of sense of unease that I was talking about. You're so on edge that when a scare does happen, you're just like absolutely lose it. It was brilliant, fantastic.
Yeah, I was the same. Like it's one of those things. Like I touched on, obviously the big scare for me, or feeling of uncomfortableness, was the shoe bit. But what I found quite crazy was like I was so focused on certain aspects of Saint Maud that really stuck in my mind that moment completely slipped it in the year between watching it. And I remember just sitting in the screen going, "Oh my god! Oh, it got me again!" Like so, it's full testament to the film that it got me not once but twice.
Yeah, I think it is one of those masterfully done jump scares in that because it isn't signposted, it's like if you're watching like a horror movie that you know really well, you know when the scares are coming, so you can kind of brace yourself. But even if I was to watch it again right now, I wouldn't know the exact moment it was going to come, and I think it would still get me again. So I think hats off to them. But Kim, you sort of touched on it there. It's a big question to the both of you. Kim, you seem to be falling down on the she was bananas side. She was crazy. She wasn't actually speaking to God or a sort of religious entity, an angel or anything like that. Lee, what did you make of her mental state? Was I guess, I mean, I suppose always in her mind what she's seeing is real, but was it real or not?
Yeah, she's definitely cuckoo. Yeah, it was one of those things. Like, that's where I kind of come from films like this. Is like, I don't believe that she is being spoken to by the devil. She is a clearly unwell woman. You know, I think she's going through some form of PTSD. I think she's, you know, you can see why this, you know, especially kind of, you see in America, sort of that evangelical kind of community, very, very different. You don't really see that much in sort of our communities or the people around us. But, you know, she truly believes that she is doing God's work, and, you know, she has this mission. And I believe that she believes it, which is like a huge testament to the film. But I don't believe that is actually really happening. But that is totally fine. I'm equally impressed by how much it convinces me that she believes it.
Yeah, I guess whether or not she believes it or not, what the truth is essentially sort of shown to the audience for real in the final sort of half a second and a half. Has anyone been able to get that final shot out their heads since it screened over a year ago? Lee, let's go to you first.
No, it's one of my favorite final shots of a movie and so on, and it's one of those things I'm really looking forward to. I think in the UK it comes out on Blu-ray on Monday, which will be good. But I'm looking forward to pausing it, because like it's the right amount of time. It doesn't terrify you. It doesn't scare you like by like just holding on to it. It's just like right in your face, like, and then that's it. Cut to credits, and then it's a very different. I can't remember the name of the song, but it's a very peculiar choice that they choose to end the film on. But yeah, that's a shot I'm really looking forward to pausing and looking at the detail.
And Kim, what did you make of the final seconds of Saint Maud?
I think it was just like unbelievably shocking. Like, there's some things you can't believe that they would show you in a film. Like, and I think people, anything fire related is never fun. It makes me think of Midsummer again. I just rewatched that recently and forgot just how horrific like that last like 10 minutes of it, just how absolutely like heart-poundingly horrible it is. And I think it's the same with Saint Maud. Though, to be fair, talking about her, whether you think the things she saw were real or not, I think the scene in the bedroom, I wasn't too sure when I first watched it if it was real or not, or just in her head. And I think you're right, that last like shot is literally like 3 seconds of the film or something. It just kind of smacks you in the face with like, no, like none of it was real. This is all like how it turned out. It's just so realistic and just so like horribly violent, and again something that like people, you can imagine someone doing to them, like people have done to themselves. It's mad. It's just it's that proper, just like Lee said, like real things that people do that really get under your skin, that kind of horror that just, and it's such a good ending, because it's literally, you get smacked in the face with that shot and then the film just finishes and you're just left there in your cinema seat just like, what the hell just happened? Like, what did I watch? It was such a, I think that was why I just walked out the cinema like slightly stunned. It was such a amazing effect. Like, I can't remember really the last film that did that to me. It was fantastic. And again, I don't think that last scene will ever stop having that kind of power, even when you know it's coming, because it's just so short and so impactful. I think it's always just going to like punch you in the same place.
It's not one of those scenes as well where you just like, you watch it, you don't go, right, with certain films they end and you just like get up, oh, you enjoy that was fine. I think with films like that, you just like, you watch it, you have that moment of being stunned in your seat and just being like, you know, a real hit in the face and the senses. And I like when you get that, where it forces you to just sit in your seat that extra moment or a few minutes after a film ends. You don't just go, oh well, that was interesting, she's on fire, Five Guys now or Nando's. I really like that. It's very rare that films seem to have that punch to end on a final shot. Films feel like they climax and end and it's kind of prolonged and so on, whereas this, it ends and it punches you and then that's it done and dusted, and that's incredibly rare, I think, these days.
Yeah, and then Johnny Flynn pipes up and says, time for a tasty beef barbecue, anyone?
Oh.
Who knows? But I mean, I have to say that Zavi, kind of spoilery with their steelbook design. If you ask me, I'll leave it to anyone who's actually seen the steelbook whether or not. I think it's kind of a spoiler relating to the end of it. If Kim's seen it, so
Yeah, I just looked
Yeah.
at it there, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, okay.
it's like
That's a choice.
it's like if you know, you know, and it's like I do appreciate that, but it's like, oh yeah, okay, so yeah. But no, yeah, for me it was like it's one of those ones where you, like you say, it stuns you into your seat, and you're like going, it's like the ending of like Kill List, where you're like, what did I just watch? It's like, because actually my friend actually basically said WTF, not WTF, but obviously the longer version after the, because I'd seen Kill List, took him to go, and he said he was basically then like looking at me really, why would you want to go and see that? And I have no idea what happened. I still don't really know what happened in Kill List. I don't think if anyone asked me to tell what the ending meant, I don't think I'd be able to tell you. But I've got opinions on Saint Maud, and yes, I think unfortunately she was unfortunately a mentally ill woman who didn't get the help that she needed, and yeah, it was a sad end to her. But yeah, what is certainly a very hopeful and bright future is that of Rose Glass, because I think she's done a fantastic job with this from writing and directing it, and it's someone that I'm really keen to see what she does next. Are you guys excited to see what Rose Glass has next? What would you like to see her do?
I don't know what she's going to do next. I mean, she has nothing up on her sort of, like, it's crazy to think this film is closing in on 18 months since it started to do the rounds. The film has been made for a couple of years now. It's genuinely surprising that she's not been linked with anything, or there's not been any announcements. When you think of like how long this film has been in sort of the the film industry in terms of like film festivals, like nearly 2 years ago, and people have seen it. The industry is more than aware of it. A24 have wrapped it up. I'm just really curious about why there's been no Rose Glass news. It's been surprising.
Maybe she's been under contract, just sitting patiently waiting to do press on Saint Maud and hasn't been able to. Although I'm sure with lockdown she's been writing away, scurrying away, getting notes down, ready to do something. But I do know that from listening to her interviews and stuff like that, it did take a long time to get all the financing in place and the right sort of production behind for Saint Maud. So, but clearly she's a director who knows what she wants and is willing to wait out in order to get it. So good on her, I think. So, Kim, what would you like to see Rose Glass do next? More in the horror genre or something else?
Yeah, I was gonna say like more like women directors and things involved in horror is always a good thing, and I think someone who can come out with something like that's so different and really genuinely like unsettling and then also properly scary, so people can't be like, oh, it's that elevated horror, it's proper scary. I would love to see her do more horror stuff. I'd love to see what she comes out with, and I think as well, like, Saint Maud is such a female-centered story as well, that like, it could just be a recipe for amazing horror films. But I would, yeah, be interested to see like anything that she does. But I think it's always nice when people who are really good at horror just stay and do more horror stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll wait for a bit of breath, and hopefully on a future episode of the A24 project, we'll have some news to share with you all. But thanks to Kim and Lee for joining me as always. But on the next episode, we reach 100 not out with our 100th episode of the A24 project, and on mark that special occasion, we are going to take a trip down memory lane, looking back at some of the highlights of the project so far. So join us next time for a wee birthday treat. We'll see you then. Bye bye.